Hello, I'm Dr. Sophie Miller, and today I'm going to tell you about a common food that you can find in any supermarket and that scientists have discovered is capable of blocking the formation of toxic plaques that cause Alzheimer's. And you've probably already eaten it, or maybe you stopped eating it because you thought it was expensive or fattening. If you're over 50 years old and worried about your memory, or if you have a family history of dementia, pay close attention because this may be the most important information you'll hear this year. And no, I'm not talking about an expensive imported supplement or an experimental medication that costs a fortune. I'm talking about a food that's available, accessible, and that science has proven protects the brain in a dramatic and real way. But before I reveal what this powerful food is, you need to understand what's happening inside your head right at this very moment, because this is going to completely change the way you see your brain health. Inside the brains of people who develop Alzheimer's, scientists found something truly terrifying: plaques of a protein called beta amyloid. These plaques work exactly like rust on the electrical wires of the brain. They accumulate silently between neurons, block communication between cells, suffocate those nerve cells, and eventually destroy your memory, your personality, your ability to recognize the people you love. And you know what's the worst part of all? These plaques begin to form decades before the first symptoms appear. You could be 55 years old, perfect memory, doing everything normally, and already have plaques accumulating silently in your brain. For many years, traditional medicine tried to create drugs to dissolve these plaques after they were already formed. They spent billions of dollars on research, on medications, on experimental treatments, and most of those treatments failed miserably. But then science completely changed strategy and asked a different question. What if we prevented these plaques from forming in the first place? What if we blocked the process before it even started? And it was there, in that shift in thinking, that they discovered this extraordinary food. Let me tell you a real story that deeply marked me. A few years ago, researchers became extremely intrigued by a pattern they observed. In Japan, especially in coastal regions, the rate of Alzheimer's was significantly lower than in the United States and other Western countries. They began to thoroughly investigate the diet of those Japanese populations and found an impressive pattern, something that repeated consistently. Through a neurologist colleague, I learned about the case of Mr. Takeshi, who was 72 years old, lived in the interior of São Paulo, and was absolutely terrified about his mental health. He told me, "Doctor, my father died without recognizing me. He had Alzheimer's and it was terrible to see that. Now I'm starting to forget things, I lose my keys, I forget names. Am I going down the same path?" My colleague ran a series of tests on Mr. Takeshi and found elevated inflammatory markers in his blood, early signs that his brain was under oxidative and inflammatory stress. But instead of going straight to heavy medication, he did something different, something that would change that man's life. He asked Mr. Takeshi to include a specific food in his diet 3 times a week, consistently for 6 months. 6 months later, when they repeated the tests, the result was surprising. The inflammatory markers had dropped significantly, cognitive function had improved on neuropsychological tests and on brain imaging scans. There was no progression of atrophy. The brain was stable. Today, 6 years after that simple treatment, Mr. Takeshi is lucid, active, playing chess, taking care of his grandchildren, living fully. And what was that miraculous food? Cold water fatty fish, especially salmon, sardines, and mackerel. Did you already imagine it? Maybe yes, maybe no. But let me explain why these fish are so extraordinarily powerful for your brain. These fish carry something that your brain is literally desperate to receive, omega-3 DHA, which is docosahexaenoic acid. DHA is a special fat that makes up 60% of your brain structure. It's the fundamental building material of neurons. Without enough DHA circulating in your body, your brain literally shrinks over time. Cell membranes become rigid and brittle, and communication between neurons begins to progressively fail. But here's the secret that very few people know, and that the pharmaceutical industry doesn't want you to discover. DHA doesn't just nourish the brain, it actively blocks the formation of beta amyloid plaques, those toxic plaques I told you about at the beginning. An extraordinary study published in the Journal of Neuroscience, one of the most respected scientific journals in the world, showed that people with elevated levels of DHA in their blood have up to 47% less risk of developing Alzheimer's over their lifetime. 47%. Can you grasp what this means? Another study conducted at the University of California discovered that DHA literally prevents the beta amyloid protein from folding into the toxic form that creates the deadly plaques. It's not just passive prevention, it's an active blockade. It's real protection happening inside your brain. Now you must be wondering, but Dr. Sophie, how exactly does this work inside my brain? Let me explain clearly. When you eat a fillet of wild salmon or some fresh sardines, 3 absolutely extraordinary things happen in your brain. First, direct blockage of plaques occurs. The DHA you consumed binds to beta amyloid proteins and physically prevents them from clustering together, forming those deadly toxic plaques. It's as if you put a molecular protective shield on every neuron in your brain. Second, a dramatic reduction in brain inflammation occurs. Omega-3 is considered the most powerful anti-inflammatory that nature created. It literally puts out the inflammatory fires that destroy neurons and accelerate mental aging. And third, something even more fascinating. DHA stimulates the production of a protein called BDNF, which scientists have nicknamed brain fertilizer. BDNF makes neurons grow, create new synaptic connections, regenerate and strengthen themselves. And this happens even after 60, 70 years of age. Your brain continues to be capable of regenerating if you give it the right tools. In an impressive study that followed 800 people for 5 full years, researchers discovered that those who ate fatty fish at least once a week had 60% less risk of developing Alzheimer's compared to those who didn't eat fish at all. 60% reduction. And that's with just once a week. Imagine with 3 times a week, like the Japanese have been doing for generations. But attention, and this is very important, I'm not talking about any fish you find in the market. Tilapia doesn't serve this purpose. Pangasius doesn't serve either. Hake, insufficient. You specifically need cold water fatty fish because they're the ones that accumulate the highest concentrations of omega-3 DHA. I'm talking about wild salmon, which is ideal, sardines, which are small, cheap, and incredibly powerful, mackerel, which is delicious and accessible, herring, which is traditional in various cultures, and tuna in moderation because of mercury. The difference is in the concentrated amount of omega-3 these fish carry. Sardines, for example, have more DHA per gram than salmon itself and cost a minimal fraction of the price. 3 cans of sardines per week can literally save your brain. Now, if you really don't like fish in any way, if you tried every way and can't eat it, there's a plan B. Supplementation with krill oil or purified fish oil of high quality, with at least 1,000 milligrams of DHA per day. But I need to be honest with you. The food in its natural form will always be superior because it comes accompanied by high-quality proteins, selenium, vitamin D, astaxanthin, and dozens of other bioactive compounds that work in synergy enhancing the effects of omega-3. Going back to Mr. Takeshi's story, he told me something that really marked me and that I'll never forget. Doctor, Sophie, for years I avoided eating fish because I considered it expensive, laborious to prepare. I preferred my usual red meat. Today I realize I was saving pennies and risking losing my mind, my memory, my identity. 3 portions of sardines per week completely changed my life, gave me hope, gave me a future. And look, it's not an exaggeration on his part. It's not a placebo effect. Rigorous scientific studies show measurable improvement in memory, focus, reasoning speed, mental clarity, and even mood in just 12 weeks of regular and consistent omega-3 consumption. And there's more. There's something even more impressive I need to tell you. Even people who already had mild cognitive decline, who were already starting to forget things, showed stabilization and even partial reversal of symptoms when they consistently included this food in their dietary routine. The brain has a much greater capacity for regeneration than we imagined 20 years ago. So what should you do now with this information? The recommendation based on decades of scientific evidence is crystal clear. Consume fatty fish at least 3 times a week consistently. It could be on Monday, a salad with sardines, on Wednesday, grilled salmon with lemon and herbs, and on Saturday, baked mackerel with vegetables. If you can't do it 3 times a week, do it twice. If you can't do it twice, do it once, but do it consistently, without fail. Your brain will thank you, your nerve cells will thank you, your future memory will thank you. And remember what I told you at the beginning. Beta-amyloid plaques begin to form decades before the first symptoms appear. You don't need to wait until you start forgetting your grandchildren's names to take action. Real prevention, true protection starts today, now, with your next meal. It's decades of serious scientific research, thousands and thousands of patients studied in various countries, consistent and reproducible results. The food that blocks plaque formation in the brain is no guarded secret. It's no restricted information. It's available at your neighborhood market, it's accessible to most people, and it provenly works. A salmon fillet you eat today could literally be the difference between remembering clearly or forgetting everything 20 years from now. It could be the difference between recognizing your grandchildren or looking at them without knowing who they are. It could be the difference between aging with dignity and independence or needing full-time care. Your brain is without a doubt the most important and precious organ in your body. It's what holds your memories, your personality, everything you are, and everything you love. Protect that treasure. Feed that extraordinary organ with what it really needs, and it will reward you with mental clarity, sharp memory, lucidity, and independence until the last day of your life. The choice is in your hands now, and now you know exactly what to do. You have the knowledge, you have the power to act. So tell me here in the comments, do you already consume fatty fish regularly? Are you going to start now after this video? Share this video with someone you love who needs to know this information that can change lives. And subscribe to the channel to receive more content based on real science that will help you live better and healthier. I'm Dr. Sophie Miller, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care of your brain, it's irreplaceable.